Hey, how's it going? This is PK, Pastor Kevin, your friendly neighborhood pastor, coming at you on Monday, July 17. I meant to be here with you on Thursday, July 13. I apologize. I had some things come up, but I am here with you right now, and there are so many things happening in the month of July that I would love to talk to you about. I want to hear from you, your thoughts. One of those things is the movie Sound of Freedom. Perhaps you have heard about the movie Sound of Freedom, starring Jim Caviezel, who played Jesus in Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ. This is a child rescue story based upon the true story of Tim Ballard, and I wholeheartedly recommend Sound of Freedom. I don't do too many movie reviews on this channel. However, I do highly recommend Sound of Freedom. And just some quick facts about this movie. The Disney company owned the rights to Sound of Freedom, but they had no plans to release it. And so a smaller studio known as Angel Studios bought the rights to Sound of Freedom. And they took it to Amazon and got turned down. They took it to Netflix and got turned down. So Angel Studios, again, this much smaller studio compared to Disney, decided to release Sound of Freedom on their own. And so they decided to pre-sell the tickets on their own, and they were able to get Sound of Freedom into theaters, into 2,600 theaters to be exact. Sound of Freedom was released on July 4th, and it was released about a few days after Disney's Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny was released. I believe that Indiana Jones was released about 3 or 4 days before July 4th. And Sound of Freedom beat Disney's 300 million Indiana Jones sequel on July 4th, even though Sound of Freedom was released in nearly half as many cinemas. Think about that. It was a true story of David and Goliath at the theater. Sound of Freedom was released on about approximately half the cinemas as Indiana Jones. And Indiana Jones cost $300 million in production costs, not to mention advertising and marketing costs. Little Angel Studios, very appropriately named Angel Studios, had a very smaller advertising budget, mostly word of mouth. And Sound of Freedom defeated Indiana Jones. Many are calling it the woke Indiana Jones. It is that, unfortunately. And so, but Sound of Freedom, with a much smaller budget, is doing great box office revenue. And Disney's Indiana Jones and the Last Dial may not even break even on its production budget, let alone make 600 or 700 million or a billion that Disney executives want. So that's pretty cool. And the media is trying to slander Sound of Freedom, but the makers of the film kept trying and didn't give up. So I want to encourage you, number one, to go see Sound of Freedom. And number two, I want to encourage you to be like this little studio. Don't be afraid. Keep trying whatever it is in your life that you want. If this small Angel Studios can beat Disney and Indiana Jones, who I like, but not Dial of Destiny. If Angel Studios with Sound of Freedom, a true story, can defeat Disney and an IP like Indiana Jones, then anything is possible. And that's what Jesus Christ said to you in the Bible. He said, anything, everything is possible for the one who believes. So whatever it is that you want in your life, never ever give up. Angel Studios could have easily given up when they tried Netflix and got nowhere, and they tried Amazon and got nowhere. You got to keep on trying, keep moving forward, do at least one thing. Make one practical step forward in your life. Do at least one small, simple, positive thing for yourself or somebody else in your life. In the Bible, in Luke chapter 5, Simon Peter had tried to fish all night long and caught nothing, not even a small fish, not a zilch. By the next morning, when this stranger rabbi named Jesus came up and was teaching, Simon Peter and all of his partners were exhausted. They had been up all night trying to fish. They caught nothing. They were busy washing their nets when Jesus asked to get into his boat. And Peter said, yeah, fine, that's fine. Sure, go ahead. And then a few minutes later, Jesus told Simon Peter, cast your nets out there in the deep water. And Simon Peter said, look, we've been fishing all night and haven't caught anything. But because you say so, we will let down the nets. So Simon got his nets back into the boat. A small decision, but an important one. Simon Peter and his partners got into their boats and they pushed from shore and they went into the deep area. Another small but important positive decision. They let down their heavy nets into the deep water, like Jesus had said so. Another small but positive decision they made. And then they caught so much fish. They caught so many fish that they were pulling the nets and their nets began to break. They caught so many fish. Wow. And they had to signal their partners to come out in the other boat. And they came out. And they filled both boats with so many fish that both boats almost tipped over, almost began to sink. Wow. All because Simon Peter made a series of small but important and positive decisions. Very simple. And Simon Peter was tired that morning. He was stinky. He was dirty. I'm sure his clothes stuck to his skin because of the heat and the humidity. He was exhausted. He was fatigued because he had tried all night to fish and caught nothing. So he was discouraged, defeated, disappointed. And yet Jesus saw potential in him. And yet Jesus made him a fisher of men. In Luke chapter 5, verse 10 and 11, Jesus told him, don't be afraid. From now on, you will be a fisher of men. You will fish for people. So Simon saw himself as a failed fisherman. Jesus saw him as a great evangelist, a future evangelist, a man who would travel all around the world and help people become Christians. See, Jesus saw more in Peter than he saw in himself. Jesus saw in Simon Peter a great man. All he saw in himself was a loser. A loser. He fished all night and couldn't catch anything. But there are no losers in the eyes of Jesus. Jesus looked at Simon Peter and did not see a loser. You may lose, but you're not a loser. You may fail, but you're not a failure. Jesus looked at Simon Peter and didn't see a failure, didn't see a loser. He saw a man who would become known as Peter the Rock. Way before Dwayne Johnson was called the Rock, Simon Peter was called the Rock, upon whom Jesus built his church. And in Acts chapter 2, it says that Peter preached to a crowd of thousands in the city of Jerusalem on the day of Pentecost, and thousands came to know Jesus as Lord and Savior. Acts 2:41, those who accepted Peter's message were baptized, and about 3,000 were added to their number that day. Not too bad, right? Not too bad for a terrible fisherman. All because Jesus believed in him. And Jesus believes in you. Jesus Christ believes in you. Jesus believes in you. He believes in you. He believes in the story of Tim Ballard, whom Jim Caviezel portrayed in The Sound of Freedom. Jesus believes in Angel Studios that beat Disney on July 4th. Little Angel Studios took on this billion-dollar company and won on July 4th. And you can win because Jesus sees you as a winner. He sees you as a champion. So whatever it is that you want to do with your life, even though you might have been rejected, told no, have obstacles in your way, have setbacks, never ever give up. Because Jesus believes in you and he sees more in you than you see in yourself. Thank you for watching. If you have thoughts regarding Sound of Freedom, I'd like to hear them down below in the comment section. If you enjoyed this, please give a like, subscribe, become one of my awesome subscribers, and I'll see you next time.